It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you. It's daunting me. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a ghost of you and me. Of you and me. All these whispers.
My name is James Hershey. Right back.
All these shadows in my mind. From my reflections I can't find. It's just a ghost of you and me. It's just a smoking gasoline. It's just a
That ought to
ghost
do
of
it.
you and me. Of you and me. Don't let 'em take you away. Don't let 'em bring you down inside. It's just the mirrors in your mind. Don't let 'em bring you down.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, Old Boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
On tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about a very strange and a very interesting creature from Hindu mythology. Now, this is going to be another one of these creature shows, these dangerous creature shows, and I love these. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the Vetala. Now, a Vetala is kind of a cross between a vampire and a wraith. In Hindu lore, the Vetala is a creature that can be found living around cemeteries, and it will reanimate corpses. You see, the Vetala is a spiritual being. It does not have a body of its own. So what it does is inhabit a corpse and then reanimate it. One of the interesting things about the Vetala is that once it inhabits a corpse, it's not stuck inside that corpse. It can leave or re-enter the corpse at will, as many times as its black little heart desires. Usually spend the daytime inhabiting corpses, and at night they leave them and roam freely in their spiritual form. The majority of the time, the reason that they leave the corpses is to feed. Now, they can feed while they are inside of a corpse as well, but it is much easier and they are way more successful when they feed in their spiritual form. I want to talk a little bit about what Vetalas are and where they come from. To begin with, a Vetala is a spiritual being, and it is a very, very hostile spirit. The reason that a Vetala exists is because the family of the person that died did not perform a proper funeral for that person. So that spirit is not at rest. It cannot go on to whatever afterlife it was supposed to go to because it hasn't been sent off properly. So it's kind of stuck in between life and death. Because the spirit is not at rest, and the reason that it is not at rest is because the family, which that person in life relied on to give them a proper burial, let them down. And they did not do what they were supposed to do. This causes the spirit of that person to become very enraged and very hostile towards the living. All of that anger and hatred and negativity eats away at the spirit and will eventually turn them into what we call a malevolent spirit. From that point, it continues to work on them, and they will eventually turn into one of these Vetalas. Now, there are several different things that you can do if you find yourself encountering one of these creatures. The first option is that you can try to appease it with gifts. Now, sometimes that can work, but most of the time, it does not. You can also try to frighten this creature away using spells. Now, in order for this to work, you kind of have to either be a witch or, at the very least, have an extensive knowledge of spell work. The average person has no chance of pulling this off. And to be completely honest, the overwhelming majority of all of the quote unquote witches out there, whose grand total of knowledge and experience really just equates to dressing up in goth clothing and watching The Craft and getting all excited, they will also quickly learn that they are not witches at all, and that they are now in a world of hurt. So, best case scenario, you are, or you know, a powerful, actual witch that can really pull off some real Dark Ages, complex kind of spellcraft. Well, in that case, you still have about a 50-50 shot of scaring this thing off with magic. Now, I know what you might be thinking right now. You're thinking, James, why do you always give us such bad news? Well, never fear, my friends, because I'm going to tell you what you can do, which almost always works to save your bacon in one of these circumstances just like this. The thing that you can do that will almost always work is to perform the funeral rites that this creature never received, and to perform them properly. If you can perform a proper funeral for the creature, then that spirit can move on to the afterlife, and it will never harm you or anybody else ever again. Now, you're probably thinking at this point, well, damn, is that all I have to do? That seems easy enough. Just do a little funeral, right? Well, not so fast, my overconfident friend. It is not as easy as that. The problem here lies with trying to figure out just who in the hell this Vetala was when he or she was a human. You kind of need to know the person's name and a little backstory about the person if you're going to give them a proper funeral. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you, like I always am, and I'll tell you straight up that this is almost impossible to do. The problem is that the Vetala is a dangerous and extremely hostile creature, and they have absolutely no interest in talking to you. You cannot just invite it to a tea party and chat like your old pals. This creature will never approach you and say, "Hello, I am a Vetala. I was planning on feeding on you, but there's just something about the way that you carry that flashlight that makes me feel like I can just trust you, man." Now, back when I was alive, my name was Coco, and I really enjoyed riding horses. My favorite color was blue, and I always got a little weepy when it rained. You are just not ever going to get that kind of information out of one of these creatures. The only way that you're really going to actually pull this off is if you actually knew the Vetala when it was human, or if you're able to find and interview somebody that knew it when it was alive. That way you get the name, you get the information, you can do the funeral. Not very likely. So, since there isn't much chance of getting rid of one of these things that way, let's talk about how you can recognize a Vetala and what it looks like. Like I said before, it is a spiritual being. So a lot of the time, when it is in its spiritual form, you'll never see it. So it could literally be right beside you, and you might not even know that it's there. When it is in a physical body, that means it has taken over the body of a corpse and reanimated it. Now, you would think that at this point, they would be very easy to pick out of the crowd. Hey, look, there's Charlie. Huh, I thought he died last month. Oh, look, his ear just fell off. Well, here comes yet another curveball because when a Vetala inhabits a corpse, they don't look dead anymore. They don't look like a rotting, nasty corpse. They look just like you and I, no matter how gnarly the corpse looked before. So these things appear to be just like everybody else. It's actually very, very difficult to figure out that you're looking at a Vetala if it is just kind of hanging out. Now that all changes when this thing decides to feed. There are two ways that a Vetala can feed. It can either feed when it's in the corpse, or it can leave the corpse and it can feed while it is in its spiritual form. If it is in its spiritual form, then you will be able to see it while it's feeding. And it'll be kind of hard to miss a spectral-like creature drinking your blood or drinking the blood of someone else. So you'll be able to see it. When it is inhabiting the corpse, it is also easy to spot when it feeds. The reason for this is that when it feeds, it changes. It does not look like a normal person any longer. What happens to a Vetala when it feeds in a physical form is the teeth of the creature become longer and very, very sharp and very, very pointed. Now, it is not like a vampire that we're all familiar with that has the two canines that grow. All of this creature's teeth get longer, sharper, and more pointed, and they all look like little daggers in its mouth. Also, the creature's eyes betray its true nature. The eyes no longer look like normal human eyes. They become slanted and they turn very, very blue. So when it is feeding, regardless of its form, it is very easy to spot. Now let's talk a little bit about how a Vetala behaves, what it does. Now because this thing is a spirit, it does not have to obey the laws of physics like we do. It can simply do things that we just cannot. The rules are different on the other side. It also has knowledge that it should have no business knowing. They know about the past, they know about the present, and they know about the future. They also have a very good understanding of human nature. So it's very easy for one of these creatures to manipulate you and to make you do what it wants you to do. All of this knowledge is a very useful and a very powerful thing. Because of that, the Vetala is one of the favorite creatures of warlocks and sorcerers. They like to try and capture these things and to turn them into slaves. They want to use that wealth of knowledge. They want to find out things about their enemies. They want to find out things that happened in the past. And they want to know what the future holds. So they will capture them using very powerful magic and force them to do their bidding. Now, you might think, man, that's a pretty sweet deal for the sorcerer. But just because a Vetala is enslaved and you are forcing it to do your bidding does not mean that it is powerless. It still has power, and it can still mess up your life. A few of the things that a Vetala will do if you have captured it are it will cause madness. It will cause women to miscarry by killing the child inside of them. It can manipulate your mind and cause you to do things that you would not ordinarily do, like murder your family and then kill yourself. As you can see, these things are nothing to be messed around with. Now let's talk about where you can find a Vetala. Where do they live? Well, as I said earlier, they like to hang around cemeteries, but They usually live inside of stones that are found either in or around cemeteries when they are in their spiritual form. The Hindu lore states that you can distinguish the stone that a Vetala is living in because, and this is the exact wordage I'm going to use, because they are red painted stones. Now, I don't think that they are actually painted. I mean, I doubt that anyone is out there painting rocks red that have Vetalas inside. What I think that means is that the presence of the Vetala inside the stone will cause the stone to turn red. So if you're looking for one of these things, you'll find it inside of a red stone, but I wouldn't suggest that you go looking for one. I mean, if there was ever a time for a kids don't try this at home kind of disclaimer, this would be it. I mean, these are extremely dangerous creatures. So now would be a great time to talk about some of the powers that a Vetala possesses. First of all, they can really mess with and manipulate your mind. They can cause you to do what they want you to do, and they can make you to go crazy. Their bite will cause paralysis. When a Vetala bites you, there is venom that is transferred through that bite. Now, this venom will almost instantly paralyze you. And in a very short amount of time, you will actually slip into unconsciousness. Now, this enables the Vetala to kind of feed at its leisure from a victim that not only can't fight back, but literally can't resist in any way because you end up unconscious. And when they have had their fill, they just simply leave. And you wake up, the Vetala's gone, your neck hurts, and you're not quite sure if what just happened actually happened or if you just had a few too many wine coolers. Vetalas also possess almost superhuman strength. I mean, these things are extremely, extremely strong. They are so strong that they can easily overpower even the strongest human. Now, you might say even the Rock. Yeah, unfortunately, not even the Rock could save you. As much as that will disappoint my wife and break her little heart, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. Now, that being said, they do have weaknesses. And this will lead us to my absolute favorite part of any of these dangerous creature shows, and that is how to kill it. Now, we talked earlier about ways that you can try to appease it with gifts or try to help it move on through doing the funeral. But if you are a blood and guts guy like me, then you would much rather just kill the damn thing and move on to the next one. So here's how you kill a Vetala. You can kill a Vetala with a silver knife. Now, this isn't one of those situations where if you just scratch it with silver, it'll die. You can't just nick it or just slice into it or just stab it any old where. In order to actually kill the Vetala, you have to stab the creature in the heart with a silver knife. Now, even stabbing it in the heart will not kill it, because after you have plunged the silver knife deep in its black heart, you have to twist the blade. Now, this will kill the Vetala. And according to the lore, you will know that the Vetala is dead, because once you do this, the body will crumble apart into a bunch of little pieces and just fall to the ground. So you'll definitely know if you did it right or if you screwed it up. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you are face to face with one of these nasty things, then I hope to God that you just so happen to have brought your silver knife with you. And I also hope to God that you remember the wise, wise words of your good old buddy James, and you stab that bastard right in the heart and you do the twist. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now and get his input on the Vetala. So take it away, brother.
And thank you, James. So everybody knows, the Vetala, I've never heard of this one. This is one I've never heard of. The Hindu religion, I don't know too much about. I know a little bit, but this one is pretty good because I don't even know anything really about this other than what I've been looking up. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. First thing I'm going to say is a couple things of what I think this is real or it's not. I'll talk about that in a minute. I think this is really similar to, like James was saying, like a vampire slash wraith, but it's a little bit crazier because this thing could probably only be used by, like he was saying, people who are higher up in magic or necromancy or sorcerer. You can't be like a regular witch, like he was saying earlier. It just like prays to the earth and does little. And most people who do that, let's get this straight, wouldn't be going for this anyway. Wouldn't be conjuring this thing up. So it would have to be somebody who's really into real dark arts. You're not going to go and watch The Craft and tomorrow you're going to summons this thing and you're going to control it. It probably wouldn't work, and if it does, it's not going to listen to you because you don't have enough power to control it. Because even the most seasoned witch have to know what they're doing. Like he was saying, 50-50 still can turn on them. Even a necromancer still's got some, it could probably turn on them if they don't know what they're doing right. This is like if you're like Salamon from Lord of the Rings, like a sorcerer like that, or a necromancer like in Lord of the Rings too. Would you be able to control something like this? And it's pretty much like a wraith because the same thing. You have to control it, but it's a little bit different because this thing can control somebody's body. It can take over their body. It feeds like a vampire, but it has a bunch of teeth like swords, like he was saying, or like swords he was saying, or daggers, and its eyes turn like a dark blue. It's very similar to a vampire. Maybe it is their version of a vampire, a little bit different. It sounds like a Wendigo and a vampire together. That's what it kind of sounds like. That's why I'm saying this is a really weird one. Plus, it with the blue eyes and stuff like that. That's really crazy when it feeds. But it's very interesting about this thing because it, like he was saying, it can take over your body, or it can make you do things that you don't want to do. It can control you. And it's also can be controlled by a necromancer, but not really because it brings bad luck to the necromancer or the person controlling the Vitera. So this thing I've never even heard of. So I don't really, it's kind of like baffling what I could think what this really is. I think this is some new kind of creature I've never heard of. And I wouldn't know what to say, how to defeat this thing. Like James said, you got to stick it with a silver knife. I don't know how you would get close to do it though, because see, that was one thing. After I'm done talking, James, you can explain to Matt. How do you get close enough to stab this thing? I wouldn't use a little sword. I mean, I'd probably get a bow and arrow and make silver arrows and shoot it. But then you have to twist it. You can't just stab it in the heart. You have to hit it in the heart and then twist it. So then that wouldn't work either. Just thinking about that, you couldn't use a bow and arrow because you have to twist it. So what I was thinking of this, if this thing is superhuman strength, like James was saying earlier, how would you get close enough, being a human being, to stab this thing without it tearing you in half? Because it's got superhuman abilities. It's like almost immortal. So how do you get close enough with a sword? And I wouldn't use a knife. I would use make a special kind of sword out of silver. But how would you get close enough with this thing not killing you? Because it can control your mind. It can make you do things you don't want to do. So that would be almost impossible for this thing to kill this thing. Unless you really know what you're doing. You're not going to go make a sword like Lost Boys and make like a dagger and stick it through a vampire's heart and that's it. People who don't know what they're doing, you have to know what you're also doing. You have to have it blessed or with some. I don't know the whole Hindu religion, so I don't know how he would bless it. So, but I figured you would have to bless it somehow. The blade too. Like I said, how would you, unless it's asleep or it took over the person's body, because you said you can't get it in spiritual and you can't even see it really. But if it's in somebody human, I guess you could do it that way. But unless they're sleeping, there's no way that you would be able to get close to this thing, I would think, without it killing you and or getting you really mad and like stopping you before you even got close because it knows what you're going to do. Like you said earlier, it knows everything, the past, the future, even what's going on now in the present. So it would know, and it also can think and read your mind. The person that's coming after you're going after he, it would probably stop you before you could even do anything. So that's what I was thinking. How would you be able to kill this thing if it probably knew that it was coming? You were coming for it. You would have to have a gang of people hold it down and stab its heart that and twist it, because you got to twist it like he was saying. You got to twist the sword when it goes into the heart, or you don't kill it right away. But then it falls and crumbles to pieces. That's very vampirish too. It sounds like their version of a vampire, but it's also sounds like a wraith and a Wendigo, because the Wendigo can control people and make them do stuff. And that's what it sounds kind of like that, but it's also like a vampire, and it also has very sharp teeth. It doesn't have like the 2 fangs or 4 fangs like a regular vampire. This thing has like everything. It's like a shark. So, and it also is blue with blue eyes, like a blue diamond or something eyes when it feeds off you. So this thing just sounds like 2 or 3 different, it's kind of like I don't even know what to say about this thing. This thing's kind of baffling me. I think it's a cool creature. I think it's really cool, but I don't know how you would find one of these. I guess you said you can go in a cemetery and it's in a rock. See, that's another weird thing. Like you were talking about the rock, because that sounds like what was that movie? The one with the genie, the Witchmaster. That's it. Like, but he was a gen and he was in a diamond. So it's kind of similar to that, because it's a rock, but it's red, and it comes out. So it kind of sounds like it got a little bit of a genie thing to it too, because it sounded similar to the Wishmaster. If you guys ever seen that movie, where that thing gives you wishes, but it's all bad. But it's not even the same creature. But it just bad things happen. So that's pretty much all I know about this thing. Like I said, is I only know what I've been listening with James, and I read a little bit about this with the Hindu religion, and pretty much this is something you don't want after you. You don't want this thing coming for you. You don't even want to mess with this stuff. And if you are a witch and you hear the show, or you're in the pagan beliefs or Hinduism, whatever you believe in, or you're in the black arts, please think about what you're doing before you try to go do this, because you got to remember, a lot of our audience are all beliefs and all religions. So I am going to say something before I throw it to James. Please, when we do these shows and we talk about certain things like this, do not try this stuff at home. I don't want to be like a cliche, like people say that don't do this at home. But please, when we talk about these different creatures and monsters, these demons, and if you can conjure some of this stuff, please don't try it. I don't want something bad happening to you and your family, because this thing could kill your family. It could kill you, it destroy your life, it could do whatever bad things you can have happen in your life, it will happen. So please, and don't think you're going to go hunt this thing either, because you won't be able to kill it unless you know what you're doing. And I'm going to tell you, this isn't some little thing that you're going to kill like on TV. This thing will kill you unless you know what you're doing. So I'll throw it back to you, James. Like I said, I didn't know too much about this one, except a little bit, but go ahead, brother.
Yeah, this is definitely an expert level hunt. If you have to face off with one of these dudes, man, they are bad news. You can't kill it in its spiritual form. It's hard to kill something that's already dead. That's the problem, right? This thing is spectral, and it's really hard to deal with. When it is inhabiting a corpse, that body is also already dead, but you can dispatch it that way. Like I said with silver, you stab it in the heart, twist it. Now, when do you stab it? That's the question old boy was asking. How do you get close enough to stab this thing? The first problem that you have to overcome is realizing what the Vetala is. Out of a crowd of people, which one is the Vetala? Because they appear to be just like us. So you're not going to know whether you're dealing with a creature or just a regular human being until it's kind of too late. I would not suggest going toe to toe with this thing, putting your dukes up and trying to take it out, because it's going to own you. It's going to kick your ass. The only time that a Vetala is vulnerable and weak to where you can actually have a chance of killing this thing is when it is feeding. Because when it begins to feed, it kind of shows itself, and you can tell what it is at that point. So then you know what you're dealing with. Okay, here it is. I can see it. It's right here in front of me. It's eating old boy's face. Got it. It's right there. That's when you want to strike. And you only got one shot. So make it count. Stab it true, twist the hell out of it, and just hope to God that you hit the right spot. If you did good, it'll die. You're a hero. If you missed, you're probably dead. But that's the only time I could say that you would have a chance in hell of actually taking this thing out, because, like I said earlier, it is strong as hell. So you're not going to be able to have a normal fight with this thing. If you're dealing with a Wendigo or a shifter or a werewolf or something like that, they're strong too. But you got a little bit of a shot. This thing is next level. I mean, this is a dangerous creature. Now, it's also a rather rare creature. You're not going to run into this as often as you're going to run into other things. We see, when we do our hunts, we see a whole lot of ghosts. We see a whole lot of demon activity. Okay, that's mostly what you deal with. Every once in a while you have a case where you have something that is attacking livestock, attacking something like that, and you have to go deal with that. Sometimes it's like a werewolf type creature, sometimes it's other things. So you do get the flesh and blood once in a while, but the flesh and blood is a lot rarer than the spectral. The majority of the cases that we handle are all spectral cases, and to be completely honest with you, the majority of them are either ghost or demon. I'd say 99.9% of the calls we receive are ghost or demon that we have to go and take care of. Every once in a while we get some really interesting ones, like shadow people and stuff like that. Those are a lot more challenging to deal with because there's not a whole lot you can do. I went up against the Hat Man, and I don't know how to kill the Hat Man. The best I could do was drive it away and keep it from harming the person. And that person has since passed on, but for the remainder of that person's life, they never had another encounter with the Hat Man. And I did that through a bunch of different prayers and stuff like that, and blessings of the house, blessings of the person, holy water, that kind of thing. But the Vetala is something that you only have one shot. So you got to do it right. And like old boy was saying before, the worst part of this is you're not even sure which one the Vetala is until it starts to feed. That's really the only time you have any kind of clue as to what it is. And as far as controlling this thing, I want to be clear from the very beginning that a Vetala does not require a necromancer, a witch, a sorcerer, anything like that to summon it in order for it to exist. Okay, it comes into being because the proper burial techniques weren't used and the soul is not at rest. That's the problem. Or the spirit is not at rest, and that's the problem. But what a sorcerer or a witch or somebody like that will do is try to capture and control the Vetala because they want to use their knowledge. Their ability to predict the future, their ability to tell you hidden things from the past and the present that you want to know. Like, if you want to know where this one guy hid a bunch of money or something, they'll be able to tell you that information. But the problem is they're almost impossible to control. You might be able to to capture it temporarily and to make it do what you want, but you're never really in complete control of this creature. So it's always working behind your back. It's always scheming to turn the tables on you. And given enough time, it's almost inevitable that that is going to happen. So this is something that you don't really want to try to mess with. See, with me, everything is a risk reward kind of situation. You look at the situation, you say, okay, here's what the reward is. Is it worth the risk? You know, first of all, what is the risk? Well, in this case, the risk is your life and probably the life of your family. So is it worth it for whatever bit of information you're going to gather, knowing that this thing is going to turn the tables on you eventually if you're not strong enough? And there may be one or two people on the planet that might actually be able to handle this thing as far as controlling it, being a powerful enough witch to do it. And I don't even know if that's the case. I don't even know if there's anybody alive today that is powerful enough to actually control one of these things. But it's interesting because Old Boy was saying earlier about the Wishmaster movie and about the Jinn. There are similarities with the Jinn because the Jinn likes to live in organic materials. So a lot of times you'll see Jinn living in trees and stuff like that. And when I say living in a tree, I don't mean they're hanging out in the branches like a monkey swinging around, right? That's not what I mean. They inhabit the tree. They are inside of the tree in a spectral form. See, a lot of these creatures like jinns and the Vetala and wraiths and a lot of these things, they have two different kinds of forms, okay? They're not just one thing. They're spectral, but they can also inhabit bodies. The jinn is spectral, but it can manifest a body, which is very, very different than inhabiting a body. See, a Vetala has to have a corpse in order to be walking around talking to you. If it cannot take control and inhabit a dead body, then it does not have a body. Where with a jinn can manifest its own body whenever it feels like it. Because jinns are a lot different than people understand them to be. See, people think, especially in America, people think that a jinn, which is a genie, it's how we know it as a genie. They think they live in a lamp and you rub the lamp and it gives you 3 wishes and it's all fun like Aladdin, right? But that's not what a jinn is. A jinn is a very dangerous creature. A jinn feeds on you, just like a vampire does, just like a Vetala does, just like a lot of creatures do. It feeds on your life force. And what it will do is it will manifest a alternate reality for you while it feeds on you. So the whole legend of the wishes coming from a genie, that comes from what a jinn actually does. See, a jinn will cause you to go unconscious into a coma-like state. And in your mind, you will have everything you've ever imagined. All your wishes come true. It's a wonderland. It's the greatest thing you've ever experienced in your life. Anything you could ever hope for, anything you could ever wish for is yours. But none of it's real. It's not actually happening. In reality, you're standing there, sitting there, laying there, whatever. You're drooling all over yourself. You're out of it. And this thing is eating you. But in your mind, limitless possibilities. You have everything you've ever dreamed of. That's what a jinn actually does. Our view of a jinn, as far as society, pop culture, whatever, is way different than the actual lore and legends of the jinn that come from the Arab countries. It is a nasty, nasty creature. And it's kind of funny how we tend to do that. You know, we take these horrifying, scary, devastatingly bad creatures and we kind of kiddify them and turn them into fairy tales and Disney characters that everybody loves. It's just really weird to me. Like a lot of these fairy tales that we all grew up hearing, a lot of those come from the Grimm's fairy tales. And if you ever read the originals, they're terrible, man. They are scary as hell and they don't end well, ever. But all of our little fairy tales, we just kind of change them a little bit, polish them up, take out a lot of the scary stuff, and give them a happy ending. But that's not the actual story, and that's the danger here, guys. That's what is so frightening and dangerous for everybody listening. Is you have people that hear the stories, they see the movies, they think, "Oh, cool. I know what this is. No problem. I can handle this." But they have no idea what the actual lore is, what the actual creature is really capable of. So they go messing around where they shouldn't be messing around. And they find out very quickly that, hey, wait, this thing isn't going to give me 3 wishes. Or wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen. Why isn't this guy sparkling? He's supposed to sparkle and fall in love with me, and we're supposed to live happily ever after. He's going to make me a vampire. I'm going to be immortal, and we're going to have a wonderful life together. With the occasional affair with a werewolf or whatever. That's just not what the actual lore is of what these creatures actually do. It's not a romantic situation in any of these cases. It's always going to end badly. It ends bloody. That's how it ends. Every time. So if you do not have the knowledge, if you have not studied it, please, like Old Boy said, and like I'm going to say, like my one of my favorites, the Crocodile Hunter, used to say, don't muck about. Okay? Don't muck about if you don't know what you're doing, because you're going to get hurt and hurt badly. So does that answer your question, Old Boy, with what you were asking about how you get close to it as far as the feeding?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know, because like I didn't hear it any earlier. How we get close to it. I heard how you kill it, but you didn't really explain too much about how to, and I hadn't really find anything about how to actually get close enough to kill this thing. But now I forgot about the feeding part, and I excuse me, guys, I do forgive about that. I forgot about that part. So I guess that's the only way to get it, if it's eating. But then I was still thinking, wouldn't it still know that you're going to do it? Because it's very smart, so... And it also can read people's minds and know the future, so it probably would know you're trying to kill it. So I mean, you would have to catch it totally off guard. So that would be that. That's what I was trying to get at. Do I believe? Now, the one thing we forgot to say: do we actually believe these things exist? The gen's a whole different story. I actually want to do a show eventually about the gen, because they have been supposedly here before time, and that would be a whole great show. And I'm glad we talk about this a little bit. I don't want to get off subject, but at least we'll know we're going to set up for a show we're going to do, because we've talked about doing a show about the gen, and that would be a really great show. Now, do I believe there exist? Yes, I do. I believe that they've been exaggerated by Hollywood and everything else, but in movies like The Wishmaster and Aladdin and all, I don't want to name drop all these movies, but there's something that the gen are real, but they're not exact. They're not nice. They're not going to come out singing songs and partying with you. They're going to come at, like James said, put you in a state and feed off your body, your soul, pretty much your life force, and you're done. Now with the Vithera, do I believe this exists? Actually, it could. I won't be surprised if it didn't or did. I don't know too much about the Hindu religion, but it could be a very much possibility this thing exists. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is high level stuff. So I wouldn't want to mess with this thing, because I was involved in this stuff and I never even heard of this thing. So, and I was pretty well up there, but I wasn't no sorcerer or anything, but I was into a lot of this stuff, man. And I never even heard of this thing till now. So what he was saying, it's not that you control it. For the time being, you can control it. And then, like he said, it's going to find a way to get you. Maybe it won't get to you, but it'll get to your family and turn them against you, or have them kill you. Because like I said, it doesn't have to just get to you. It can turn your wife to kill you one night while you're sleeping, or your brother. It doesn't have to, it could do whatever it wants that way, because it just can make your life a living hell. Do I think it exists? Yes, I do. There's a possibility of probably about 70% on this one. I believe that this thing probably does exist. It may be not exactly what we're talking. There's always been exaggerations with every story you read, but this is a very much possible creature. And I wouldn't want to mess with something like this, or I wouldn't want this thing after me, because I'm not. I'm like I said, I'm not scared of things, but I doesn't mean I want them coming after me either, knocking at my door, and coming after my family and me or anybody I love or friends even. I don't want anybody to get hurt, and I don't want anybody to get hurt while you listen to the show. So that's why we stress, if you don't believe this stuff, that's fine. Don't believe it. That's fine. Go listen to another show. I don't care one way or another. I love every one of you, but if you don't agree with what we say, then understand you're listening to the wrong show. But if you do believe what we believe, then take what we say is protect yourself on all these things. The Hat Man, the Gen, the Vitra, all these things can hurt you. And if you don't believe they exist, then you don't have nothing to worry about then, and you won't go looking for it anyway. But if you do believe the stuff that we talk about, and I believe most of you do, stay away from it.
I think it would be very beneficial and very useful to do like a little timeline here real quick so that everybody can understand. I said earlier that the Vetala is very, very rare. Now, there's a reason for that. A Vetala is not an original creature. Okay? Now, what I mean by that is there are no baby Vetalas being born. You see what I'm saying? A Vetala comes into being through progression. It does not just start off as a Vetala. What happens is there's a human being, a person, just like you, and they die for whatever reason. Doesn't have to be a particularly gruesome death, doesn't have to be violent. They could have died in their sleep peacefully of cancer. Who knows? They are not given the proper burial rites. So, because of that, their spirit is not at rest. So that leads the spirit to get a little upset. As time passes, that spirit becomes more frustrated, more enraged. It becomes darker. Eventually, it becomes what we call a malevolent spirit. Those are the ones you usually have in homes that are tearing stuff up. They're throwing stuff around and being a nuisance, scratching you, poking you, just a pain in the butt. Okay, that's the ones you call people like us for. We come in, we cross it over, we get rid of it. As more time passes, that darkness and that rage continues to build. Now, the people that this malevolent spirit is angry with are the family of the original human being, the people that did not give it the proper burial in the first place. The problem is, at this point in time, who knows how much actual time has passed for this process to take place. It's not an immediate process. So those people may very well already be dead. So the opportunity for that vengeance that this malevolent spirit wants is no longer there. Because those people are gone. They've passed on. That causes even more rage, more frustration, more darkness. That continues to build. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets worse and worse and worse and feeds on itself. After enough time passes and it gets dark enough and angry enough, that's when it can become a Vetala. So by the time you are dealing with the Vetala, you are dealing with potentially decades of hate, anger, vengeance, all of the darkest base emotion there could possibly be. So there is no reasoning with this creature. There is no live and let live. There is no let's find a way to peacefully handle this situation. You got to get rid of it. Or you got to run. Point blank. You're either going to kill it or you're going to run as far away and as fast as you can. One of those two options, because anything other than that, you're screwed. But like I said, it's a very rare occurrence that one of these come into being. So when it does, it's a very, very hard thing to get rid of. But luckily, the overwhelming majority of people will never ever have to worry about this creature. It's not something that most of us will ever even see in our lifetime. I have never in my life received a call about a Vetala. I have never went on a hunt for a Vetala. I don't even know anybody who has actually fought and tried to kill one of these things. And I've dealt with a lot of different creatures. I've dealt with a lot of different things. So has Old Boy. We've been doing this a long time. I've never even heard of somebody killing one of these or trying to kill one of these. That's how rare it is. But I was a Boy Scout. I believe always be prepared. I might have to face one of these one day. And if I do, I have the knowledge to deal with it. Now, do I have the ability to deal with it? Who knows? Back in my day, I was a hell of a fighter. But I'm not back in my day anymore. You know, I'm 44 years old now. I'm starting to get a little long in the tooth, as they say. You know, I can still give it a go. I'm still a tough SOB, and I can still fight if I have to. But I don't know. You know what I mean? I mean, these things are bad news. Would I try? Yeah, I probably would. Be honest with you, I probably would. Because I ain't met a fight yet that I've walked away from or ran away from. So, most likely, if I ever have to face one of these things, if I can get lucky and catch it when it's feeding, I might have a shot. But it'll probably end bloody if I have to fight one of these things. And I probably won't win. These things are bad news. But they're extremely rare, and that is why they're extremely rare. I thought it would be interesting and helpful to kind of give that little timeline so that people could really get a better understanding of where this creature comes from, how it comes into being, instead of just thinking, well, it's just like, you know, any other kind of flesh and blood creature out there that they just exist or they don't exist. This is a thing that kind of progresses into what it is. And do I believe it exists? Absolutely. Even though I've never met anyone that's seen one or never heard of anyone that's seen one, I believe they exist because I have seen some amazing things in my life. And I have seen how those dark emotions, that rage, that jealousy, that vengeance, that hate, I have seen how that can twist a spirit into a very dark, very dangerous thing. So, to me, the process makes a lot of sense. And I could absolutely see that being the final result. Now, do I know 100% for sure? No. But I do believe that these things do exist. Now, with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy so he can do his shout-outs.
And again, to the show and doing some research, I never even heard about this. And I've seen a lot of crazy dark things. I've seen the Hat Man. I've seen everything. So just so you guys know, I didn't even know about this thing to right now, we did the show. Not to right now, but since we did the show. But I want to thank everyone for listening to us. We try to do a show about everybody's almost everybody's belief, or we try to do stuff about ghosts or whatever. We take a lot of people's opinions we listen to on the comments of different shows, and we try to do the best show we can. We always never do a rerun. We've always done a new show every week. So keep with the telling us what you guys want to hear, and we appreciate it in the comments. Remember, follow us on James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page. Subscribe. We're over 4,000 subscribers now. Thank you, Para X listeners. I love you guys. 37 countries now. 37, 38, whatever I've been hearing. Millions of people listen to us. I thank you guys. We also have a merchandise so you can get shirts. James will tell you where to go on that. And we're also doing Tales from the Abyss. We got the first episode. We're working on the second and the third one right now, and we're going to do a fourth one soon. So that will be coming too, guys. Check that on the YouTube page, on James Hershey's page, on James Hershey's YouTube. Just hit it and subscribe. Sorry, guys. I want to thank everybody. It's almost coming Christmas, so hopefully we can start doing some Christmas shows because, this is the last week of November. So we'll start probably doing Christmas shows like we did last year. So I want to thank everybody for listening to us. Have a great night, Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Demon Hunters, and Monster Lovers. I love you. Have a good night. Blessed be. Good night.
First of all, let me get the plugs out real quick. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Please go there and subscribe. Check out the videos, 100% free. A lot of interesting stuff there. I hope you guys enjoy that. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's teespring.com/stores with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where you find hoodies, shirts, just everything, cell phone cases, stickers, posters, whatever you want, it's there. That's where all the merch is. I want to do a show here coming soon, just of all of your experiences. We have a lot of people that listen to this radio show that email us and that send us their experiences. I got a really cool one from a guy named Tishan in Philly, who ran into some black-eyed adults. It was an amazing story. And there's several other stories that are really cool about different creatures that you guys have sent us. So if you would like your story to be included, because I'm going to do an episode just of your stuff, send us your information. You can send it to my email address. It's horrorauthorjameshersheyjr@yahoo.com. Or you can hook up with us on the Facebook page for Staring Into the Abyss and send us a message there with your experiences. I really enjoy reading those. And I've gotten back to a couple of you, and we've corresponded back and forth. And there's some really interesting stuff. So we're going to do a future episode just on your experiences with the paranormal. I think that'll be a brilliant episode. I'm really looking forward to that. So with that being said, guys, we are just about out of time. So thank you. I love you. And until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.